Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
I'm Buzz, and in the studio this week we have Grace Jukes.
Hi Grace.
Hello.
And what are we going to be talking about this week? Songwriting.
Woohoo.
If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
So yes, we are in the studio with singer-songwriter Grace Jukes, who is going to tell us all about her methods of writing songs, how you start, how you end up, beginning, middle and end, and produce hopefully the whole shebang of how you produce songs.
Because you do have EPs that you can buy.
Yes.
I do indeed. Oh, shameless plug.
That's
Shameless
all right,
plug.
you can
Yeah,
plug
got
those
it.
later on. However, first of all, we need to do our weekly segment known as Weird and Wonderful. So what is it this week? I've got a Weird and Wonderful.
I don't think you can beat the cat one from last week.
Or I'll try. It's another animal one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
This week, it's titled Escaped Kangaroo Captured After Punching Canadian Officer.
Okay, you beat the one from last week.
Well, I don't know. I liked, was it moon pie?
Mooncake.
Mooncake. last
Still
week,
getting that
but,
wrong.
Moon pie, moon whatever. Anyway, so a kangaroo that escaped its handlers during transport to a new home was captured on Monday in East Toronto after a weekend in the wild. But not before delivering a punch in the face to one of the police officers who'd brought her run to an end. There you go.
So is this actually in Canada?
Yeah, in Toronto. So a female kangaroo hopped over her handlers late on Thursday during a rest stop at the Oshawa Zoo and Fun Farm in Ontario. Video was put on social media on Friday of the marsupial, who was born in captivity, running along a road in Oshawa, a town on Lake Ontario, about 37 miles east of Toronto. Officers on patrol spotted the kangaroo at around 3 a.m. on Monday on a rural property in North Oshawa. Staff Sergeant Chris Ballou contacted the kangaroo's handlers and was told to grab it by the tail.
It's a funny scene.
Okay, so he instructed his officers to do exactly that.
Yep.
However, the kangaroo...
The kung fu.
The kung fu, yes. However, the kangaroo punched one of the officers in the face during the capture. There you go. It's something that he and his platoon mates will remember for the rest of their careers, he told
I think we will too.
CBC Toronto. There you go.
Do you remember that one time?
That one time when he got punched in the face by a kangaroo or a karate kangaroo.
Karate kangaroo.
There you go. So
That's a movie right there.
Yeah, that's it. Karate kangaroo.
Karangaroo.
Karangaroo.
Karate.
Yeah, I think we could all do with that. Nice little bit of karangaroo. Could be a whole.
It's the new style.
Oh,
Well,
I
it
love
is.
it.
Mind you, there is one. There is a karate style from Australia. It's and people call it kangaroo karate, mainly because it's from Australia. But I just can't remember the name of it. But it sounds a bit like kangaroo, like
Capoeira.
Kangaroo. or something.
Capoeira.
No. That's from South America. Capoeira.
Oh, well, it'd be with a K. Actually, it's a C. Maybe. I don't know.
No. Anyway, yeah.
It's a
Let's
form of
move
dance
on.
fighting.
Let's move on. We have Grace in the studio. Welcome back, Grace.
Hello,
because,
Grace.
Thank you. Hello.
You did come in before for our Lord of the Rings superfan.
I did indeed.
And
yeah.
for the mince pies.
Of the mince pies.
And the cheese.
And the cheese.
And the cheese. Wow.
yeah.
Wow, this is your fourth podcast.
Can't get rid of her.
So
I
you've
know.
got
I know where you live.
4 podcasts out of 80.
Oh yeah, there you go. Whoa, taking over basically.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
So let's get to the crux of it. It's all about songwriting. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody listening out there, hopefully you'll pick up some tips in this week's Now We Know show exactly about how to put together a song, etc., etc. I don't know how to do it because I'm not a singer-songwriter.
So how about, to start off with, could you give us a bit of a backstory of how you got into songwriting?
Yeah, sure. So, I think for everyone it's always pretty random. I used to just wind my parents up in long car journeys by making up ditties in the back of the car, singing at the window, and then, drive them absolutely insane doing that. And basically, eventually, my dad told me you should probably learn an instrument if you're gonna do this. Just do it for a bit of fun, but learn the guitar. I was really anti doing that for absolutely ages. I just really didn't fancy learning an instrument, and it was painful. Steel string guitars kind of cut your finger.
I mean, do all singers have to learn an instrument? I mean, you see a lot of singers that don't seem to ever go near an instrument.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes songwriting a lot easier. I think in this modern day and age, with all of the technology that we have available, with things like, GarageBand, Logic, all of the DAWs, digital audio workstations that you can compose music in, they have a lot of, and I can go into that later if you're interested, but they have a lot of ways that you can make music within that. You can use your computer keyboard to make piano sounds and things like that. So you don't necessarily, I don't think it's quite as vital as it used to be. But I do think it's helpful if you have an understanding of music. It makes it so much easier to piece stuff together. And it certainly helped me out a lot. Most of my songs start from guitar these days, and I'm starting to branch out now. But so my main instrument is guitar, and I sing. I dabble a little in piano, I just sort of started from there. And I found, as I learnt guitar chords and things like that, songs would just start to come to me. I'd get ideas. And
I was going to say that because a lot of people love to play instruments, obviously, and they'll play music generally that they like.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they themselves want to actually write their own songs.
Yeah.
So my question would be, what actually inspires you to write songs?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this earlier, it's quite an abstract thing for me. I think mainly I believe in sort of journaling quite a lot. I think sort of getting your thoughts out on paper is a great way to kind of make sure you're not getting lost in your own head and that kind of thing.
So does it just come to you randomly?
Pretty
do you have
much.
a set process, or do you just...
Or is there a sudden light bulb moment?
So they're having a coffee in a coffee shop and you go, ha-ha!
That's exactly...
Where's the napkin?
You joke. It's exactly how it has been pretty much for me. I do consciously songwrite sometimes to challenge myself and go, I wonder if I could do this.
What, so you sit down and say, right, I am now going to write a song.
Exactly. And I'm like, I've got no inspiration. Now I'll get myself inspired and try to write something. But the majority of the time, something will just spark my interest, maybe exactly like that. I'll sit in a coffee shop and a teacup will make a certain noise and I'll go, that's a song right there. That's got to be a song.
That's a funky noise.
And...
I mean, we've said before, like the clashing of swords. That would be a really cool thing to put into some kind of music track.
So true. For me, a lot of the time, it's just a way to get my feelings out as well. So it's kind of like journaling for me.
A bit of catharsis, even.
Exactly. So I would sort of sit down and I'd be feeling something and not really know how to express it, and I'd just pick up my guitar.
So would you say, therefore, that real life experiences play a role in your songwriting?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I was actually having this sort of discussion the other day with someone. There's obviously lots of different types of songwriting. When you listen to how someone kind of composes stuff, you'll have the songwriters that are very much, they'll write a story. So Dolly Parton, for example, is very much like
we all love Dolly.
Yeah, love a bit of Dolly.
9 to 5.
Oh, that's the one.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
That's it.
Yeah.
And of course, what's the one where she always going about that woman leaving her boyfriend?
Jolene.
That's it.
Jolene.
I can't get that high. Sorry.
You tried. You did good. You did good.
You're saying I can?
You did better than me.
Nailed it.
I can just pretend to sing.
You're stealing my job, to be honest.
I
It's
do
a little
apologise.
bit rude.
Well, talking of singing, we are going to listen to a couple of your tracks during this podcast.
Oh, that'd
it's
be
very
interesting.
exciting.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, if I just quickly finish that train of
carry
thought, if you listen to a lot of different people's songwriting styles, Dolly Parton's very much like this is what happened, and she relays the story as though she's almost reading a book. But when I write, I tend to write, I think when I sort of listen to my lyrics, they're quite abstract almost. It's more talking about an idea behind something. So if you listen to it, it might be, it's not I sat down at my desk and I'd had a sad day. I try and encompass that usually in saying something a bit more generic about, how life can be difficult, but you've got to carry on and kind of live. So there's lots of different styles of writing, but I tend to probably fall into the more...
Do you permanently carry a notebook around with you, or do you use a mobile device, or...?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is quite common in the music industry. I've heard most of my favourite songwriters do this, but if I have a melody in my head, I've got voice memos on my phone, and that's where I've filled up my entire phone storage. Actually, it's actually a problem, guys. Like, I don't know. I need to sort this out right now.
Have you thought about opening a cloud account?
I know, literally. I'm like, this needs to change. So usually all of my audio is in my phone, and lots of, awful flat singing in my phone. And, you come back to
You'll have to send those to me.
There you go. I will. But yeah, and then if I obviously have a lyrical idea, I've got a notepad, and I do prefer pen on paper. It definitely feels different. So a lot of my books have.
That kind of brings me on to another question, which is when writing a song, does your melody or do the lyrics come first, or is it a bit of both? Yeah, can it just depend on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what I'm doing. But actually, to be fair, a lot of the time, they come at exactly the same time. If I had to pick, it'd probably be a melody first, because usually the rhythm of a melody lends itself to a certain type of lyric, if that makes sense. So a lot of my songs, if they're more ballady, it sounds kind of strange, but you need longer words to sort of that fit the length of the beats in the bar and things like that.
I've never really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron. What a good, I love that word.
It's a long word.
It's a
How many sides is a
dodecahedron.
dodecahedron?
It's 12, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
We'll have to write a song about dodecahedrons now.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Right. This is an interesting question I wrote down. Do you have any rituals or habits that sort of get you into the songwriting zone? Do you say, I must have a cup of tea, or?
That doesn't go amiss. One thing I've always said is if I need to write songs, I look at the sky. That's I'm obsessed with looking at the sky. So
so does that mean that a song during the day might be different if you a song during the night?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's so for me, my favourite types of day are obviously kind of blue sky days, but anything can
Scudding clouds.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
Thunderstorms.
I haven't done anything with this yet, but I've got a couple of songs that I, over the years, have tried to write. I'm really into lo-fi chill hop kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys, or jazz hop.
Again?
And it's
Jazz hop.
Jazz hop, and it's basically a combination of hip hop and jazz.
And suddenly gone into the world of Mighty Boosh now.
Oh, there you go. Way.
That's scat.
Scat jazz.
Nice.
Sorry, carry on.
That's all right. And so a lot of the time in those tracks, they have sort of audio from the outside mixed in with the music.
Wow. So that's kind of like,
what's that thing they use
Foley
these days?
artists.
Yeah, but what's that term they use on YouTube and stuff?
Oh, kind of like white noise type stuff. Or...
ASMR.
It's pretty much
like
that.
The crunching of crisps.
Crows.
There you go.
Crowing. See, because I like... I have a very wide range of music that I like, but what you've just reminded me of are things like Wardruna and such like, which do a lot of music which has thunder in there, that has crows.
Your Scandinavian Viking style stuff.
Yeah,
they did all the soundtrack for the Vikings.
Oh, nice!
TV series.
Oh,
I don't think that is that the actual intro song isn't Wardruna.
Shows how much I know about music.
That's enough. It's fine.
Whereas me, it's more kind of, I watch a lot of films,
Yeah.
and the basis of my music tastes are probably rooted within the themes of films
isn't that
I've seen.
Isn't that part of music? Because you listen to a song and then you'll associate it with a good feeling, or you'll feel it with a melancholy feeling. So when you get couples, they might choose their song in brackets, and of course then years later, I'll still hear a song that I'll associate with an old girlfriend that I had from years ago.
Ooh.
And go, it's that one, and then you go,
let's
track, Gavin.
Let's go to one that
Alexa, skip track.
we can associate to each other.
Yeah.
And that is the song Don't Stop Me Now, which we sung whilst running down Ben Nevis.
It was like,
nice.
we really wanted to get down Ben Nevis, and we had a great time climbing up there, but we wanted to get down, and there was a coffee shop at the bottom, and I promised you a hot chocolate.
Yep.
And it was like, don't stop. But we were on the scree, rather than going on the path.
Yeah.
We hit the scree slopes, so we could literally...
in quotations, a shortcut.
Yeah, a shortcut. You could literally run and then go... whoosh, down the scree.
Oh, I love that.
And it was good fun.
Tina, who's also been on the podcast, she had quite the time of...
She wished she hadn't followed us, really. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, so as soon as I hear Don't Stop Me Now, I just think of that fun time of
running down Ben Nevis.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's the thing with music, it can last for years and embed itself in your psyche, depending on what it is.
So true.
So what kind of style would you put your music in?
Oh, I always really struggle with this one. Because, and I tell you why, my dad and my mum raised me on every type of music there is. And so when I write songs, because what tends to capture my imagination, it's actually interesting, you talk about, obviously, Don't Stop Me Now is something that, is just embedded in you. Sometimes songs will come from, I'll hear a song that I really like and I'll go, I want to write in that style. I've never done it before. I want to write in that. And actually one of the tracks we'll play later had that kind of idea behind it. And so it can be really difficult to pick a genre, and actually it was really hard when trying to release my EPs, because they ask you obviously for all the metadata and they're like, what are you? And I'm like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah, I know what that's like.
That could be just as much as putting a video on YouTube where it says
100%.
which category do you put your video in. I go,
and those categories are so
limited.
Outdated.
They are, aren't they? I looked at them as well. It's like education. It's kind of like, well, they are educational.
Pets and animals.
Yeah, so what do I do when I'm doing my bushcraft?
Yeah.
And it's also I'm doing night vision camera of otters. Do I put it down as educational or do I put it down as animals?
Is it how to and style or people and blog?
Yes, right.
So, oh man. So yeah, that must be fun for you to have to fill in all that stuff.
Exactly, and it's obviously they talk about being an indie songwriter as well. You kind of have to market. Again, it'd be exactly the same for you as content creators. You have to kind of market yourself if you want people to find it.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's easier, pick a niche. And I'm like, I don't want to.
Pick a niche.
I want to break those boundaries,
Exactly, and so.
But is it such a bad thing though? At some point, if you found yourself in a niche?
No, definitely not.
Because I mean, you do kind of find that. I mean, let's just take some. I have great. I take my hat off to songwriters because I don't know how you guys do it. To be honest with you,
I could write a script or a novel or something.
But to put somebody that springs to mind straight away in that niche for me, is a combination of a fantastic all-round musician and entertainer, but also his buddy, who is probably, to me, one of the best songwriters going, and that would be Elton John.
Yeah.
Now, he's obviously in that kind of niche of his own.
Yes.
But I can't remember his buddy who's the songwriter who writes the songs. But Elton has sung so many songs, but the guy, it's going to annoy me. We're going to have to Google it. But his buddy who writes the songs has just knocked all of these Elton John songs out for decades.
Damn,
and he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And it's crazy
Amazing
to think
stuff.
one guy can just bring such fantastic records,
Yeah, 100%.
One after another after another.
Because that's the thing with like scripts and stories and things. It takes you've got time with that, and for a song, it's like you've only got like what's like the prime length for a song.
Yeah, it'd be like 2 or 3 minutes.
Couple of minutes, yeah.
Unless it's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Exactly.
There's
We're
a
in
whole film
prog
about
metal
that.
now. We're in prog metal now. Oh yeah, love that.
Oh, it's Bernie. That's
Bernie.
it. It's Bernie Taupin.
There you go.
I had to Google it. Good old Bernie. Yes, absolutely amazing songwriter. When you think that behind most of Elton John's, I don't know, maybe all of Elton John's songs, I don't know, but Bernie has literally written all of those, and you think, how does he do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. Well, it's interesting because it's actually a fear that you encounter as a songwriter that, one day it's just going to dry up and you're just going to be like, I feel nothing. That sounds really dark.
Geez.
I didn't mean that. I feel nothing. There is nothing but darkness inside. No.
We want to refer everyone to the previous podcast where we talked about mindfulness and being positive.
That was one of my questions. Was to ask you what happens if you get writer's block? How do you get around it?
And I think for me, it actually happened a little bit for me last year, where I'd always written songs with my guitar and I'd always written, by singing, and I was thinking, I want to do something different. I want to do something that's actually just pushes me out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I actually wrote a song called In a Whisper You Were Gone, which I wrote using the sound my friend's washing line made. That was... do you remember that one?
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, this is a whole other string to my, to my bow. Is that the one?
Yeah,
there you go. Whole other string to my washing line.
Maybe there's your niche.
Do they?
I mean, there are songwriters that literally just write songs for other people, don't they?
Yes.
Because pop bands will obviously sing songs.
Yep.
The bands or groups will get known for those songs, but they didn't write them.
Yeah.
There's this
whole industry
of songwriting behind all the pop songs.
Yeah, behind the faces. Yeah.
But that's kind of why I say, with Elton John and Bernie, you that continuous pulling out. I mean, I suppose if you went to an Elton John concert, I mean, I'm just using him as an example, or you could say Queen.
Yeah.
Every single track you play, you'd probably on stage, you'd recognise every single one they play. But then you go and see other groups, and you'll know them for maybe one or two songs that you've gone to listen to, and then they play a load of stuff you've never heard of before, and you go, I'm a bit bored of this now.
definitely.
Which has happened to me. I went to a Guns N' Roses concert.
Interesting.
And that was at Wembley Stadium. I was really looking forward to Guns N' Roses, and then they played loads of stuff from their new album, and everybody was just there wanting them to play the classic stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that wasn't very good. And it was like you had to wait to the end to get something you recognised. To go, now I get into it.
Yeah.
That's the bit I'll remember.
That's the bit I remember.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I think to be, it must be very difficult to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, where you
sort of like consistent.
consistent.
Yeah,
the consistency of records.
And especially maintaining that to
and that must be very awkward.
Providing for your audience.
That must be very awkward if you can't, because you also have that problem, don't you? When people jump kind of a genre, then they want you to be kind of in a genre so that it sounds.
Consistent.
They like that sound.
Yeah, that's it.
And I don't know, could it be detrimental if you sort of jump about too much?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is
I love this person's song, and now they brought this thing out. What is this? I don't understand it.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely think recently I've definitely been falling into a sound which for me as an artist is much, much easier to handle when stuff comes out in the same, that you could group together and not be like, Grace, you did a death metal track, right, and then a folk song. It's a little bit off here, you know.
From one extreme
exactly.
to the other.
And I mean, to be fair, on my EPs, I kind of did that with the last track, both of the sixth track on each EP, because they were kind of meant to be almost like a mirror of each other, the two EPs. The last track on each of those is like an electronic song, and it's quite funny how it kind of divided a lot of the people that listened to my EP, because a lot of them were like, that last track was a little bit like not it. It was quite funny.
So you said EP a couple of times. What is an EP for listeners out there?
So it means extended play, and I think it harkens.
When we used to have vinyls.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're actually probably more qualified to talk about this because I've never had an EP as it originally was.
I've still got some in the attic.
But yes, it stands for extended play, and it's basically harkening back to the
back
discs.
in the days we used to have the 45 RPM discs, and an EP you play it at a slower rate. I think I'm not sure if you played if you had an album. You play it at 78 RPM, which was slower, and I think the EPs were the same. You played it at 78 RPM and not a 45, which meant you could squeeze, like, instead of having just one song on each side of a 45 single, you'd have maybe two songs on each side, because you could slow it down and get more on a smaller disc.
Does that mean EP was a longer disc?
Yeah, extended play.
Now that's interesting, because in modern terms, quite often an EP is the shorter one.
Oh, really?
So now it's quite common EPs will have 6 tracks on them, and an album will have 12. So that's interesting to see.
Yeah, but the EPs as a vinyl disc were the ones in between.
Yeah.
Not many people produced EPs, which were, as I say, were extended play.
Yeah.
But it was kind of in between, because you bought the single or you bought the album was the general thing.
Yeah.
But once in a while, a band would bring out an EP.
Do the middle, yeah. That's interesting.
On picture discs as well.
Yeah.
And of course, your EPs are actually available on disc.
Are available.
Go on, plug them.
Go on. Here we go. You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, my EPs are available on all major streaming platforms of your choice, and I also have EPs to purchase in the physical format. As we know, these guys here love their physical media.
Oh yes, we do.
And you can't indeed, and you can buy my physical media CDs from my website gracejukes.com.
I will include a link in the description of
on
YouTube.
In
that case, maybe we should listen to one of your tracks.
Ooh,
I think it's a good point. So, which is the first track you're going to play us?
So I'm going to play you guys Walk a Little Wild, and this one has an interesting creation story behind it.
We'll talk about that after we listen to it.
There we go.
Okay, so let's listen to Walk a Little Wild. was pretty catchy.
Oh, I
wasn't it?
love that song. That's awesome.
Good. That's got some. Do you get any inspiration for any other singers or songwriters? Because to me, that one kind of had a bit of a country and western tang sort of sound to it, but it also reminded me quite Sheryl Crow. I don't know if you know Sheryl Crow at all.
I think I've heard some of her songs. I don't necessarily know, this is what happens with me, I don't necessarily know if I was consciously emulating it, but because I'm always listening to that kind of stuff, definitely influenced that. I love John Mayer as a songwriter. He's very guitar based, and I think...
What about country and western?
Country and western?
It kind of felt, there was a lot of guitar
strumming.
Yes, I mean, what I was trying, actually an interesting kind of thing here, what I was trying to emulate there, when I first wrote that guitar riff in there was actually kind of like the music you get in western movies, sort of, the cowboy.
I need to show you those, by the way.
You do. And so it was very, very much kind of taking influence from their soundtracks and that kind of thing. Probably a little bit of like Raikuda, the theme from Southern Comfort, that kind of thing. That kind of.
Okay. So, as to the song itself, what was it about? What inspired you, and what was it about for us?
So really, it was written in the heart of lockdown. I can't remember what point exactly, but I sort of started writing it. Every Monday I did a live stream with the people on my Facebook page, and people would come in, loads of them had Zoom meetings at, sort of like 10:30, 11 o'clock, so they'd squeeze in for half an hour to come see me sing and have a chat and all of this kind of stuff. And what happened was I sort of thought, what would be a really great way to get people involved? So it's not just me singing at people, but it's actually me getting them involved with stuff. And we decided that we were going to kind of write a song together. So I would give them the framework and then say, tell me which word to use in the chorus, tell me which word to use here. And so basically I contacted my mailing list and I told them, here's 3 words to choose from. And I did it with my Facebook crew as well, and got them to send in all their ideas. And I sort of counted up the comments and we picked what lyric to put in. And I basically added a little bit to it every week on the live stream to the point where we had a full song that
must have been really rewarding.
It was really, really fun. And so it was supposed to kind of also be a song about what people were probably going through in lockdown, that kind of being stuck indoors, and the fact that kind of people needed to get outside, touch grass, all of that good. Walk a little wild. And
walk a little wild.
That's the one.
I have to work on the guitar.
There we go. Yeah, Get you playing some spoons. It's all right. We've got you.
I can do that.
You can.
Just about.
You can actually play a cajon as well. That's what you played. When we had the soiree, you played the...
Oh, the box.
Yeah, you played the box, the drum box.
Oh, you were going a bit Bongo Pete on that way, yeah.
I like to play my bongos in the morning. I like to play my bongos in the morning. Bongo solo. That's Harry Hill, wasn't it?
Harry Hill, yeah. Bongos.
Love a bit of Harry Hill.
We love a bit of Harry Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's going back a bit when TV Burp was on.
Oh, my gosh. I used to love TV Burp.
Yeah.
Do you remember... was it Where's the Knitted Character this week?
Yes.
That one. Oh.
I remember actually phoning in to do that.
Did you actually?
Yeah, it appeared on CBBC.
Damn! That is very cool.
It was like the big finale, but it appeared everywhere that week.
And of course, they had that really catchy music where they used to get the statue of Queen Victoria suddenly used to come on the screen. And do you remember that really groovy music they used to play? They'd all be dancing around to it. I can't think of the track. Well, there you go.
I'm just remembering, let them fight.
Yes. There's only one way to find out. Fight!
But which is better?
Oh, there you go. A bit of nostalgia there.
Oh, yeah. Love that. I can't remember where we were. Who needs to know where
we're just coming out of Walk a Little Wild and
we walked a little wild with Harry Hill's TV Burp. Oh, yeah. But, so it was sort of about the lockdown experience, really, and that people need to get out, and also just daily life, really, probably harkening back to sort of what you guys talk about in mindfulness, that kind of, it's so easy to get caught up in the stress of life, and you just got to take yourself outside, just, like in our family call it take a step off the roundabout. You're spinning round so fast, everyone's getting caught up in the chaos, and you just take a step off the roundabout and go, everybody breathe.
So did you kind of make it to kind of be an inspirational song as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think most of my songs, I always try, even if I'm writing from a place of like sadness or I'm struggling with something and I'm like, I like this, I'm trying to process something that could be deemed sad or anger or whatever. I always try and write in a way that is positive and encourages people not to get lost in that negative emotion. So if I'm writing about, it's been a tough year for everyone. I never want it to end with like, and it's still sad. I always want to use the song to get...
I'm not sure I've actually heard a sad song from you. Have I heard a sad song?
I don't... maybe Most of All from the first EP was the closest I will get to a sad song, which is... I wrote that song about missing my granddad because he moved really far away. It sounds like I miss my granddad, but he moved. Yeah, he moved far away, and I wrote that song kind of for him, thinking about him.
And which song was that?
Most of All.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like it's kind of ballady, but I still wanted it to be positive and kind of about the fact that you have someone to miss as opposed to it.
I'm trying to play that in my head, but now all I can think of is walking around.
It's interesting because one of my questions was, how does your mood affect your songwriting? So.
Yeah. So it's definitely whatever you're feeling. I always try and control my emotions when I'm songwriting, so I try not to get so swept up in the emotion that it becomes an outpouring of like pain if I'm sad or whatever. I don't like when it goes dirgy in songs a lot of the time. So I try and regulate that kind of and channel it into something.
Do you prefer it to be a positive, uplifting song?
100%. And even if you're talking about something sad, I always want people to leave with the feeling of there's hope. I never want it to be they get to the end of the song and go, oh, well, is that it? Am I just stuck here? You know, I kind of want it to be a song that gets you from the sad emotion to, well, this is sad, but we can move and use it to grow as a person.
Be in a positive place.
Exactly.
Have you had much of a response from like your listeners?
Yeah, actually, there was loads of really cool stories during lockdown. One of I'm thinking of someone in particular, but loads of them went through really tough times. They'd lost people, or whatever it was. And one of my listeners was actually listening from hospital, and they sort of like wrote in on one of the live streams and said like, you just got me through this really dark time where I felt like there was no hope. I was really struggling, and your song has become my anthem for like the tough times. And it was like, gosh, as a songwriter,
that's a real compliment.
It's really amazing.
I feel really proud about that.
Yeah, I do. It's pretty
cool. You mentioned about through lockdown, but do you find that current events kind of also help you to develop your songs?
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the main things I'm noticing as a trend in my songs now is, I think there's a lot of hate in the world and a lot of people sort of arguing with each other, and I think that's always been the case, but it definitely, I think we hear about it a lot more now. So writing songs that encourage people to come together, or to find ways forward, or I'm a great believer in like individual responsibility, so just encouraging people that even amidst the darkness where maybe you're arguing with people or it seems like a really dark place, to kind of sort of have control of yourself, because it's the only thing that you can sort of control. So
if you're going through this, you've had the inspiration, might be a coffee cup, ding or something,
that
or
ding
a washing
was nice.
line or something.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Nice
I should not have worded that. Like anyway,
the fact with the eye contact.
That's a nice ding. Just as well, it wasn't a dong.
It was the side head glance that really sold it to me.
It's a ding. It's a dong. It's
a ding dong.
It's a washing line. So you've got
a new song right there.
Ding dong washing line.
Ding dong washing line.
Ding dong washing line.
I think we need to work on our song.
There we go.
So we're working on our ding dong washing line. So you've got your idea and you're working. When do you know that a song is finished? Yeah, because I like writing short stories.
Yes.
I mean, I've written many short stories.
It'd be interesting.
Do you know, I don't know if I knew that about you.
I do. I'm working on one at the moment where it's not short stories, actually, an audio drama called #Survival, funny enough.
Nice.
But with my short stories, I have this horrible habit of I write them and I get sort of like, the end.
Yes.
And then I go and reread them and go, I want to change it.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I want to change that.
Because I've actually gone through this scripting process.
And I have to kind of fight with myself not to keep going back and changing things.
So at university, I've gone through a lot of this scripting process and how projects are made, created, and produced, etc., etc. And what I basically learned from that is something is never going to be perfect. Projects are created and developed.
Yeah.
And then they're made up to a point where they're then abandoned.
Yes, yeah.
You don't finish a project, you abandon it.
Yes, interesting perspective
so
on
would
that.
you say that, Grace,
which I kind of found really interesting.
Do you say that you abandon a song at a certain point and say, right, that's it?
Now this is interesting. So when it's
or is it that big
Yeah.
The end goes on there. That's done.
Is that you've given it a tick of approval?
Yes, it.
This is the best song I've ever written, and I'm done. Made for life. Oh yeah. I think
just do a Christmas song.
Yeah,
that's
just
it.
do a
Exactly.
Christmas song.
My dad keeps going. He's like, "When's the Christmas song coming out? Can you not add bells to one you've already written?"
Just
and I'm
do
like,
that ching,
"Dad,
ching,
no."
It's just got to be like that sleigh bell
Yeah,
song.
the sleigh
There's
bells.
hardly
There you go.
anything to do with Christmas. Just the music videos with snow
There we
and
go.
sleigh bells. They say a lot. That's it.
Boom, sorted. What was the question?
The question was, how do you know when a song is finished?
Okay, so
Well, you-
when I'm acoustically writing, so what I mean by that is I've got my guitar, I'm singing, and I write basically what I would call, it's just the acoustic version. It's the guitar, me singing, the chords and the lyrics. That's really easy. That's what I know when those songs are done and I'm happy. The bit that is so hard is the production stage of an album. So that's where you take it and you have to record it into a computer. Oh man, like the first EP was almost
So
soul destroying to be
did
like,
you have to do
when
that
is it done?
Single-handedly.
I did the production single-handedly and the kind of recording it all in single-handedly, and then I had a great mixing and mastering engineer who basically polished it. So I basically sent him all of the raw audio files and a rough mix of what I wanted it to sound like. So I sort of said, this is the sort of characteristic of sound I want it to have. But I just don't have the ear for that. He's his name's Gareth, and he's a really skilled guy. He's just got the ear for making sure the vocals don't cancel out the guitar, and bits aren't too quiet, too loud, etc. And he did all of that bit for me, and he knows all the bits,
Technical
the stuff and the
things.
bits. So he covered off things like what bit rate it should be done at. Sort of.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and what different streaming platforms do. They'll actually turn down your song based on how it's mixed.
That is
or
true.
they'll increase the volume based on how it's mixed. Do you find that for podcasts?
It's
actually?
interesting. I have never experienced any trouble with this.
Yes.
But a similar thing is equatable to when you put in a film onto disc. Again, this is another thing I've learned at
Interesting.
university, that production companies and things, when you're going to distributors and things, they will require a specific format for
Right.
your thing
Yeah.
in order to put it onto disc.
Okay. Yeah.
Or for like classifications and things and trailers and
Yeah,
such
that
and
makes
such
sense.
and such. But I found that's a really interesting kind of
Yeah.
cross
Parallel.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallels there, and I'd actually kind of like to delve into the film world. I'm doing a couple of courses at the moment on music for film and games, because they're such a different medium, but also so many
certainly
crossovers.
when it comes to, because obviously we're filmmakers, and when it comes to your best friend when it comes to filmmaking
Yes.
is the audio, because
Yeah, of
audio
course.
is dirt cheap generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can change the emotion in a scene
Yeah.
completely. It can make or break a scene depending
Yes.
on the type of audio sound you've
Yeah,
got with
for
it.
instance, if it doesn't work with
Yeah.
the scene, then
Yeah, it completely changes.
it can make something memorable.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
There's
Yeah.
it brings to mind, as an example, there's a scene from one of Bruce Lee's movies. It's the one where he's fighting
Chuck Norris,
Chuck Norris in the Colosseum.
Way of the Dragon.
Yeah, Way of the Dragon, that's the one. And he's fighting, it's a classic martial arts movie. But somebody put that scene on YouTube and changed it to kind of like a love story melody. Have you seen that?
Oh,
It's really, and it's like, the bad thing is it
tensing
works.
all your muscles and everything.
Because they're all in
Yeah.
this sequence where they're tense before they
Like,
fight.
taking
they're
off their
That's
clothes,
taking off their
hilarious.
clothes and tensing their muscles. And
Wow.
in the original, it's really dramatic,
Yeah.
really
Yes,
like the
yeah.
tension before the fight. And then it's turned into like this complete love scene.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
And the trouble is, it works
Yes.
so well.
Do you know there's another film they did that? They did it with the scene in Lord of the Rings where Aragorn and Legolas are looking out across the plains. I can't remember what movie. It must be The Return of the King, I think. And they're looking out across the plains and they're kind of seeing the armies of Mordor approaching.
Right.
And then someone put Hungry Eyes over the top. It's Hungry
Yeah,
Eyes. And
that's-
every eye glance is just like so tainted. You're like, no, what have you done?
Yeah, so that's a really,
Yeah, 100%.
interesting area to get into. Is that movie
Yeah.
score writing. Yeah, I don't know. Out of my zone, I know what I want to go with a
Yes,
particular scene,
yeah.
but to
Like
produce
a
the music,
particular style.
particular
Yeah.
style.
And it's the ability to convey that style like correctly to whoever you're working with in order to kind of bring that to fruition.
That's so true. That's exactly what I had when I first met Gareth as this mixing engineer. I mean, he's amazing, because do you know what we had to deal with was me turning up and going, well, I kind of want my music to sound like, you know, like, ha, and kind of like, you know, I want the sound to be like long and like, and wide, and like I want it to sound like water. And he was like, right, okay. But he did it, and that's what, you know, that really shows someone's craft, is he sat down and went, I think what you mean is this, right? And he'd just, you know, put reverb on it and do blah 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 blah, EQ it a little bit, and I'd be like, that's exactly what I'm, how did you do that? He's like, you know,
it's the ability to translate something that's so abstract into
physical.
Yes, it's there.
That's amazing.
So I'm going to ask you a question as a songwriter. Why do you get some songs where the songs never end, they just fade out, and other ones will stop?
I reckon you know the answer to this.
Well,
do you,
I want the no.
You do have that little cheeky smirk of you might know something.
No,
there.
I want to know exactly why, because you know you listen to songs and it's and then it just fades out, and so you think that they could still be singing this half an hour later.
Yeah, 100%.
And then ones that just stop because it stops. That's the end of the song.
Yeah.
It stops.
Is it to transition into like the next song?
I don't know. I just wondered why that is kind of like a choice of the songwriter at the end of a song, whether to stop or just to
long fade.
out.
Yeah, so I heard that it was because it gets it stuck in your head. So right. I heard it's actually a technique that people, I mean, obviously beyond the fact that it just sounds cool, so for some people they'll just be doing it because it just feels like the song doesn't need to end. The fade, yeah, right. it can feel like the song doesn't need to end, so they might just kind of, maybe it's like a representation of the story never ending or whatever. But I think a lot of the time as well, they used to do it. I think they did it quite a lot in 80s music.
And 70s,
and it was quite common because I think it used to get stuck in people's head because your brain couldn't, I think it's a psychological thing where your brain...
Well, there was no stop.
There's no stop, so your brain's like, oh, it's still going.
Out, you're
so
still...
it's done for like a purpose then.
I a lot of the time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so...
Is that a technique that you've used?
I have never done it. And actually, now you've mentioned it, I'm just sort of thinking it's actually something I could have fun playing with. I haven't written a song so far that it's fitted with, but it's something I could intentionally write with. So that might be...
It would be interesting to see if that song then becomes one of your popular ones.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just haunt you guys with my music and be like, did this get stuck in your head? What about this one? What about this one? You have to tell me how catchy it was and whether it
I want the ding-dong.
You want the ding-dong washing line?
The ding-dong washing line.
Oh, yeah.
Just fading out.
We'll provide
ding-dong washing line.
I think we might have to provide the funding for that one.
Yeah. All we need is, well, ding-dong sounds like, maybe this could be the start of that Christmas track.
Ding dong.
Ding dong.
It's like Ding Dong Merrily on High. Yeah, there you go. Ding dong.
Ding dong on your washing line. Something about singing.
Hang your stocking on your washing line.
Hey, there you go.
Washing line. Washing line. Washing line. Ding dong. Washing line. I don't know where this is spawned from.
And this is where I go through my rap era now. And this is how this happens.
This is your awakening.
Oh, yeah.
Your musical rebirth.
Before we go too obscure, maybe we should refresh the listeners' ears and play another track.
What do you reckon? I think we should do it.
What are we going to go for?
What are we listening to?
So this next one is called Silhouette, and there's actually a fun story about this one as well. Not super interesting, but it's I'll give you a shout after we've listened.
Okay, hit that button, Zach.
Seems to what good would that be if I'm not happy in you? I see you roll your eyes, but I'm just living my life. You need to learn to lighten up, so just watch my silhouette disappear. I got more important things to do than to linger out here. You say I better pull my socks up and let me make things clear. I'll do the best I can, but I ain't gonna live in fear. Ooh, da 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 la da 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 da
Woo! Well, that was cool, wasn't it?
It was.
So, what is this? You got us, before we went into that song, you told us there was a story behind it.
Yeah.
We're all wanting to find out.
Here we go. So it's not super exciting, but we were talking earlier about, obviously, a lot of the time, other stuff will inspire me to write the songs. And I believe at this time I was quite stressed at sixth form with sort of exams and things like that. And I just took a moment out, sort of, again, just take a breath. And I remember distinctly going and sitting in the music room, and they had this tiny little practice room and a guitar that was like, I think, missing a string or something.
Wow.
You know, it
Wow.
was
Pulling out all the stops there.
you know, but it was this really cool old classic guitar.
Which college did you go to? I'm just imagining all these students that have qualified coming out saying, I can play anything, but as long as it hasn't got an E in it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't know what that string does, but I don't know. Don't ask me. Yeah, there was this old rickety guitar, and what I basically wanted to do was I sort of wanted to outlet that kind of emotion and go, I just don't want this anymore. I'm going to put it into a song and encourage myself. Basically, I sort of write for myself as well, sort of to get myself from a feeling to a positive state again, basically. And I wanted to kind of take influence from sort of two of my favourite artists, who are Mindy Gledhill and Owl City, and they kind of write very what I would term cutesy songs. So when you listen to the lyrics, they're not.
It's interesting you say that, because I made a couple of notes myself.
Yes.
After listening to that song, and it's very much a lot more upbeat.
Yes.
Than the first one we listened to.
That's right.
In that kind of, and it reminded me of style of, I don't know if you know Katie Tunstall at all.
Yes, yeah.
But also
Katie.
Fairground Attraction. Have you heard Fairground Attraction?
I think I've heard some of their songs, but I couldn't.
But they have that kind of uplifting kind of not whether you call it party, but
I know what you mean. It gets you toe tapping.
Yeah,
it kind of gets you into it. Yeah, exactly. And the same thing goes. Mindy Gledhill used to, and still does actually, write sort of songs that are very almost childlike in the way they look at things. So you know, that's something I really enjoy, and Owl City does exactly the same thing. So with the lyrics, sort of like, you know, you say I better pull my socks up, kind of that type of thing. Those lyrics.
Pull my socks up, disappear.
Exactly. That's it. Oh my God, you remember them?
It's getting in there.
Can you see that I'm a fanboy?
We just need the fade off.
There you go. Just need it to fade out, and then it'll get even more stuck.
Embedded in your
exactly.
psyche.
But so the story behind that was, obviously, it started on acoustic guitar in that little music room, and was kind of, can I write in more of a style of these people or take influence from them? And kind of I really doubled down in the lyrics of, like, normally I wouldn't say this, but it, you know, pull my socks up is a phrase I always use.
How did you decide on well, this is a good question for both the tracks we've listened to and any other tracks. How did you decide on the final name? Because you called this one Silhouette. So where does the silhouette come into this?
Yeah, man, that's a tricky one.
Was it like a lyric in the song, or did you start with a title, or?
No, it always comes from the lyrics. There was a really interesting idea that I remember hearing about, and it was this idea that quite often song titles are kind of very obviously written. You know it's going to be a word from the chorus. And so I quite often, I kind of ask myself when I get to the, you know, a certain point, usually just before the chorus, I go, do I want the song title to be kind of based around, do I want the song to be based around one word or a phrase in the chorus, or do I want the song title to be something a little bit harder to pick up? And Silhouette was one of the ones I decided. I think I actually wrote the chorus first, and it then really struck me. Owl City actually has a song called Silhouette, for starters, so I think that was kind of probably jogging around somewhere in my subconscious. and then I thought, do you know what, that's a really good fit for the song. But that came after the chorus was written, so sometimes it's just pick the coolest phrase that kind of fits with the vibe of the song, and then sometimes you can structure it around, you know, what you want the song to be called.
It's interesting, because when I write stories, it's really funny because I tend to
what
write
do you do?
stories and the kind of the titles come to me.
Yes, I get you.
So weird.
And
Yeah,
I think of the
it's the same
title.
for me. I usually come up with a good title to spur the idea.
I have lists. I literally jot down. I've got a new title, and I list down on titles, and I have like lists and lists of titles, and then fit stories around the title.
No way.
This is so amazing.
Rather than write the story,
weird.
rather than writing the story and then finding a part of that story to apply as the title.
Wow. Because
do
I do exactly the same thing, and you've never really conveyed that to me.
No.
And I have got a ton.
I know.
A ton of titles for things.
Titles that spring out of my mind.
Yeah.
That's
I've got all the audio dramas.
Then once I say the
history
title,
that I've
it's
written.
like the story almost explodes
from
the
that
title.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I do that with album titles, but I've never done that with a song. That's I don't think, maybe one, but
I don't think I can think of any of my stories that I have either written or I still have on the sort of penciled, sketched idea stage that I haven't not got a title for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was one called the Pirate Queen, for example, and I wrote that on a trip out to Croatia. And then I stayed in Croatia for a bit, and I came back, and it was I hadn't decided to write this story at all. It just came to me while I was in Croatia.
Wow, yeah.
And straight away I had this title, The Pirate Queen, and then all the story came to me, set in the kind of Victorian period, but it all came to me after that title just popped up in my head.
Yeah, and kind of started to create the world for you.
Around the title. You know, that's how it worked for me anyway.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got a question.
Oh,
okay.
I like questions.
Now, the listeners won't have seen this, but with both the tracks that you sent over for me to listen to, for us to listen to, I take it the artwork on there is the artwork of the EP.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
There is a theme that I noticed in there.
Yes.
One, you're brandishing a gun.
Yes.
The other one, you're brandishing a baseball bat.
Yes, yeah.
So, can you tell us about why this is like, I don't know if you've got any others that have got more weapons in there, but
yes, I mean, I've got ideas.
Is that coincidental, or do you have weapons in every single one?
Maybe just have anger issues or something. No, so for me...
I just thought you were like the Walking Dead fan or something.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, exactly. I just wanted to look cool, guys, okay?
Just need a couple of zombies in the
That's
background.
it. Perfect. Sold.
Well, the next one's got to be swords, right?
There you go.
Anyway, so, the weapons.
Yeah, so what happened initially was Breaking of the Mundane was a title that came to me. I kind of was playing with the idea. I'd never obviously done an album before, so that album title came to me because I was like, I want to push myself out of my comfort zone. I've been saying I'm going to do an album for ages. I'm going to do it. I'm going to break out of the mundane stuff that I'm doing.
Okay.
That's where that came from. And then I coupled up with a couple of my friends and we had a chat about it. The guy who took the photos was called Charlie. He does really cool photographs. He's a friend of mine. And we sort of all talked about it, and we kind of came up with the idea of using a baseball bat with water balloons to kind of create. You can imagine how much fun they had with that. Yeah. So it stood there
no. We didn't get that one.
Literally, you joke. He was like, yeah, I think we're going to need to lob that at your face.
Well, that's why I kind of got these, from the images, I kind of got this feeling of country western almost. Because
yes.
You're actually dressed in what I would consider, you're in very country locations.
Yeah.
You've got a nice kind of country dress on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But then you have like this rifle.
Yeah.
And then you have a baseball bat.
Yeah.
As if you're like, stay away from my chickens.
Get off my land.
Get off my land.
That's it, exactly.
Stay away from your horses.
There we go. So that's what happened initially with the first EP. And then because I wanted the second EP to kind of be similar, to kind of match the vibe, I knew I wanted it to almost have the same number of syllables type thing. Mm-hmm. I was kind of winging the second album a little bit more than I was on the first one. So I thought, I'm kind of shooting from the hip. And I was like, So, yeah, the second one, obviously, with the title Shooting from the Hip, immediately conjured that idea of weaponry. My friend Morgan, she had one of these guns kind of lying around at her mum's house.
As you do.
As you do. And not loaded, obviously, unfortunately.
That would be unsafe.
That would be not recommended at home, kids.
You must have a license.
There you go.
Suitable storage solutions.
There
Yes.
you go. Shelves. Oh yeah.
The
No,
gun cabinet.
not for gun. A gun
Oh,
cabinet
yeah,
for guns.
fair.
It's called a gun cabinet, darling.
Damn. But yeah, so that's where that came from, and so that idea, because I wanted them to be similar, it was like weaponry. Kind of want it to match
But
the title.
it's weaponry, but it also you look very, can I say,
Country,
ladylike?
yeah.
You know, very,
Oh, thank you very much.
you know,
Just
very
imagining.
feminine.
I just
Thank you,
imagine.
yeah.
you-
There was a contrast between
That's
this very
I-
feminine image in these country locations and then brandishing a weapon.
Yes.
I now picture you standing on stage, like doing a performance,
Yeah.
but with a sword strapped to your back.
Yeah, 100%. That's the only way to
That
go
could
from
be your
here.
niche.
There you go.
there
That's
we go.
it.
There you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Weapons.
And I kind of wanted the covers as well to show my personality, but the gun made it cool because I'm quite goofy. So I was like, okay, right, here we
Guns
go.
are cool.
Guns are cool.
I've got
I'm
to say at
goofy.
this
I'm
point,
pro-gun.
I've got to say at this point, you keep mentioning swords. Maybe you should point out the fact that Grace does actually
Do
swords.
She does do swordsmanship.
I do.
She is
You have two swords.
She is a martial arts
I did
student.
like the way you said point out.
Yes.
Ah.
Well, that's the easiest thing about doing swordsmanship. You make sure the pointy end
Is
goes
facing away from you.
faces away from you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway,
Yes.
moving on. You say about you mentioned being on stage. What
Good
about
question.
concerts and things? Have you done any live performances you
so
can tell us about?
I mean, really, for me, the live performances are about getting my original songs out there. I try and associate them with songs that people like, so I tend to intersperse them with the classics. You've got your kind of Status Quo, your
Well, I was
you
going to
know,
say
so-
people do cover versions because, let's face it, your listening public want to hear some stuff that they like.
Actually like. yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Because it can be quite a shock when they are listening to stuff they don't know.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
yeah.
So
They just kind of
you bring them on
put
board
it,
with a good
bring them
old...
on in there,
That's it.
and then
Then hit him in the face with a, this is from my EP Breaking of the Mundane, which I also have in my suitcase beside me if you'd like to buy a copy.
You can't beat the merch.
Oh yeah, battery's not included. But
Get ready for the merch. Well, now I've got a friend who's in a punk band and he travels all over Europe.
oh wow.
Doing a lot of 70s punk stuff. And he says that even though they go to venues, obviously they get paid to do their sets, but they make more money out of their merch than they
Yeah,
do
that's-
actually
yeah.
playing. You know, so
that is
Yeah.
very interesting. It's very interesting.
It is. So
So, where have you done any of your gigs?
ooh, where's the coolest place I've done so far? I mean, obviously, a lot of the time it's local venues, and sort of because it's easier to build a dedicated fan base in kind of an area. But what I'm finding is I'm getting a lot of word of mouth.
That's good. That's
It
good.
is really good, and also sometimes people just randomly find you online and book you, which is pretty cool. So I remember getting an awesome hen party in Essex was one of the most random ones I had. She just literally found me online.
Wow.
It was great. I had the time of my life. It was, probably one of my favourite gigs, just from the angle they were up dancing, and I knew I was playing songs they liked.
you're going to do well with a lot of drunk ladies on a hen night.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
You had an experience on what was it?
That was at Latitude.
Turn Up Charlie.
Yeah, we
Turn
were
Up
filming
Charlie.
at Latitude, and I don't know why I attract them, but the hen party seemed to love the beard.
Maybe
Yeah,
it was the beard.
yeah,
Yeah, it was the
yeah.
beard. It was the beard.
But yeah, lovely bunch of ladies I got to
Got
sort
a
of
very
play
large
to. So.
inflatable penis, if I remember.
Oh, my
right.
You had
word.
to say it, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I had to say
That's
it.
it. Can we bleep that out? Possibly. I don't know. We'll see what Zach does
Well,
with
it
it.
ended up, it was like when the whole crowd came in and Idris Elba was doing his set.
By the way, you're going to be in a TV show.
Yeah, there was about 1,000 people there with this giant penis flying around above them.
Wow.
So everybody's going, no, I don't want it, you have it back.
Did that make it into the actual series?
I don't think it did.
Did they do some elaborate cutting?
Probably.
Damn.
Anyway, yeah, fun
I
things.
almost lost my hat in that mosh pit.
Oh
In the
wow.
mosh pit, yeah. Oh, there you go, story for another day.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you're performing all these
Yeah.
lovely venues.
And I also did Toaster Racecourse, which was pretty cool. That was another sort of highlight for me as well. Sort of, obviously, I love local venues.
Oh,
And
toast of the place. I thought you meant toast as in.
yeah, I actually just.
Cheers,
I-
everyone!
Oh, I was thinking a bread toaster. Just played to my toaster
so
in my
you're
kitchen.
thinking bread, you're thinking drinks, and I'm thinking race course.
There you go. You're on track. Oh,
Damn.
Wow.
we're whipping them out today.
Said the bishop.
Maybe not in
actress.
it.
There you go.
Be a bit strange in a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it would. But yeah, that was really cool. I think, if I remember correctly,
Is that
E17 had
is that
played.
one of the biggest venues you've done?
Yeah, I would probably say so. It was one of the.
To date.
To
Just
date.
To date.
There's still time.
What's your largest audience?
Ooh, I mean,
Just approximate, really.
approximate. Probably
You don't have to have a tally.
2 people?
Yeah, two people. My parents. Probably like
200.
200 to 300, maybe.
Oh,
Nice.
that's exciting.
Maybe more, but I
Do
would
you get
go.
nervous?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean,
yeah.
okay, I'm going to ask you this question. As a singer-songwriter, and you're obviously doing a live performance, do you get more nervous playing a cover track than one of your own, or is it the opposite way? Do you think that a cover track, you say, I know this well, I know it's going to go down well because I usually get a good reaction. I don't know how my own song's going to
do you know, that was definitely something that I had to start with, because I was also being cheeky to start with, because in the first couple of gigs I got, of course I was like relatively unknown, and I'd given these guys this amazing pitch of like, you know, you should book me. I'm the best thing since sliced bread, you know, just
loads of PMA.
That's it, exactly.
Positive
you know,
mental attitude.
That's it, exactly. You know, and I believed it, you know, from the sense of I knew I could do a good job, but, you know, I had to convince them of that. And I sort of just, you know, at the end of our meeting, sort of talking about it, I went, I'm just going to play a couple of my own, and then, you know, run away or whatever. But actually it ended up being amazing, and to find that people would start requesting my songs, but that initial kind of choosing to play them is can be quite nerve-wracking, and also because you tend to practice covers more because you want to get the crowd favourites right, in a sense. So I'm
because I've got to say, if you're listening to a cover, you're either going to do well or you're going to crash and burn.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you've got somebody who know it's their favourite song,
yes,
and if you do it well, they're going to go, wow, that was really good.
Yeah.
Or they're going to say, they just murdered my favourite song.
No, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I always call it the Grace remix, so I can always cover it if it goes wrong, and people generally enjoy that. And I think people also appreciate if it's their favourite song and you go, we're going to ignore the fact that, you know, verse 2 was entirely wrong. They're like, she knew, and it actually kind of gets them more on board with you. But yeah, I think covers are definitely easier from the angle of I really like my own songs, and I want them to come across well to people so that I can sort of encourage people with them and that kind of thing. And you know, if you get them wrong, you kind of almost feel like you're misrepresenting yourself. You're like, I'm better than this, I promise. So so there can definitely be that. But yeah.
Right. Well, you did mention something right at the beginning of the podcast that I want to come back to.
Nice.
And you mentioned about GarageBand and other things.
Yeah.
And you said that maybe you could give the listeners a little insight in how you use
Yeah,
those.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because obviously you say you play the guitar.
Yes.
Obviously you sing. And you've got your lyrics. How do you build up those other musical instruments on your tracks?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So usually what you start with, you pick what's known as a digital audio workstation, which is shortened to DAW or DAW.
DAW, okay.
And you've got, I mean, loads of brands of those, depending on if you use
So that would be something like GarageBand.
Exactly.
Which we are using right now.
Yeah, they come standard on all Macs, doesn't it, basically?
It does. And if you're going to do it professionally, you'd be looking at something like Logic Pro X. For music, GarageBand's great for sort of other stuff, but when you want lots of samples and things, Logic Pro X is usually a good place to start. Cubase, Pro Tools, all of these, depending on what computer you have. And in there, you've got sounds that obviously, you know, if you plug in a keyboard or you have your computer keyboard.
Would you recommend, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, to build up some kind of track, that it's best to use a keyboard, proper keyboard, rather than a computer keyboard?
Well, one of the tracks that I wrote on the first EP, not that it's one of my favourite tracks anymore, I run hot and cold with it, but A Little Jazz I initially wrote using my computer keyboard. So that was just put into my computer using what I used to type on my computer.
See, I kind of find it, I don't know how it works exactly, that's what I want to learn, but when I've used an electronic keyboard, you know, then you can actually, you've got the physical, and I'm not talking about a keyboard that you plug into a computer, I'm talking about a musical keyboard. You can switch the different rhythms on, you can switch the different instruments on, and of course the keys all stay the same, and depending on what note you play, or
what
how
you
can change it to laser gun.
How long you hold those notes down and things like that.
Yes.
Then to try and think of doing that on a computer keyboard, I think, how on earth does that work?
Yeah.
So, for me, it would seem more logical to use a keyboard.
Yeah, it would definitely make more sense. It definitely doesn't have to be a blocker to people starting out. There's a feature, I don't know about anything else, but in GarageBand and Logic, there's a feature called Show Keyboard, I believe, or Show Musical Keyboard, and
it shows you on the screen.
And it shows you what key on your computer keyboard
plays
what piano key. So you can then
does
see
that not take up screen space though? Sort of.
It does, but you don't need it if you sort of, you know, if you're putting in a bass line or something. It's, you know, it's not ideal all the time, but you know, it's sort of a good workaround if you're sort of like, I don't want to, you know, I'm a guitarist, I don't want to invest in a keyboard. It's a great way to do it. You can't change the velocity of the note because obviously it can't pick up pressure, if that makes sense. So you can't make it louder.
That's what I'm saying. When you have a physical keyboard, you depending on what type it is, it picks up that
exactly, the nuance there. But programs are so good you can edit them so that you can increase velocity manually. That's by the by. But there's lots of stuff out there. And
so for somebody who's beginning in songwriting, what would you think would be the most accessible and economic approach to what should you use? That's obviously, it's like doing filmmaking.
Yes,
if you're doing filmmaking, you're going to say to somebody, okay, you're going to go out there and you say get something like Avid, or you're going to go and get Premiere Pro and After Effects.
Or
but that
Windows,
could all cost,
Windows Movie Maker.
that
or
could,
something.
The bottom end is there's some really bottom end stuff, but not everybody wants to go out and fork out like hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
So what was for our listeners, since this is our first introduction to songmaking, if somebody's got an idea and they'd like to play in their bedroom, what would be your sort of go-to?
Yeah. So my first advice would be just start writing. Stop, reading about it at a certain point. You've read about it and you just need to make bad songs. I know it sounds random, but loads of the
Just get creating.
Just do it. And you're going to write a ton of bad songs, but through every single one you write, you're going to get better. So just do it. Just start. Write that cheesy love song, get involved. And then from that point, I would say make sure you write it down. So either pen to paper, or there's usually a note function in your phone. And there's usually on most phones a voice memo section.
Yeah, I use
so
that
you
myself.
can
I
record
get ideas for stories.
Yeah, and you're like,
or even voices. I tend to do that. I have characters in stories, and I imagine their voice. So in order to remember what that character sounds like, I just mimic that on the...
Oh, that's amazing. I love that, yeah. So I'd say that's a great place to start. It's just your voice notes in your phone. If you haven't got that feature on your phone, I believe there's a free bit of software called Audacity, which you can
Audacity,
use.
yes. I've used that. I haven't used it in recent years, but it's a free. What's the word to call it?
Digital audio. It's actually not a digital audio workstation, is it? It's more like a recording software.
Yeah, recording software.
Yeah, that's another word I was thinking of, where you get free access. Anybody can download it.
Open source.
Open source.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
There we are.
There you go.
Yeah.
Open source.
Learning technical terms on the Now We Know Show podcast.
There you go. So you got and that would basically is what you would record to, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I wrote a bunch of my first songs on that because I think it has layering capacity, doesn't it, in that? And I remember making drum sounds with me banging a cushion or something, and I made beats using a cushion. So you can do all sorts if you get creative. So.
Whereas a step up from that would be something like GarageBand.
Exactly, and you'd have the initial cost if you're not a Mac user. You obviously got to buy your Mac, but I mean Mac is
okay. So Mac for a beginner, GarageBand is a good start.
Yeah, 100%.
What about Windows? If you're a Windows user?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know because I don't use
I would
Windows.
have to Google
that would be Audacity.
Audacity,
but
that wouldn't have all the
stuff like the MIDI recording.
Well, yeah.
So I just wondered, do you know off the top of your head, is there something?
I know I used what would be deemed an educational version of Cubase, which was much cheaper. So if you're a student, I know you can get that quite cheap. But
of course, students generally. If you are a student, do check it out because a lot of software 100%. You can get discounts on.
But I am on my course I'm covering at the moment. There's actually a surprising amount of free digital audio workstations. It's definitely worth just googling for some other ones, because there are ones that don't cost anything.
And if you do that, make sure that you download them from a reputable site, because you don't want to download something that also contains virus software.
Malware.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Or maybe you haven't, but I definitely have.
Oh dear. Yeah. What have you been watching?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing for me. I used to use Windows, now I use Mac. And since using a Mac, I've never really had any problems issues with it at all.
No,
but there you go. But be very careful when using Windows.
I remember there's that, I think it was from the IT crowd, wasn't it, where the guy goes on the lady's computer. I'm not being specific with characters here, but he goes, "Where's your, Internet Explorer?" And she's like, "Oh, it's behind the dancing lady." And he was like, "Your computer's so infected, if it were a zombie, I'd shoot it in the face." And I was like, I mean, I've been there.
That's a good one. I like that.
Oh man. Anyway, sorry.
Brilliant. Well, okay. So sum up: there are software packages you can use out there that are easily accessible, even free, and you've got that process that you've just explained about. Just keep making those songs.
Yeah.
For good or for bad, just keep making those songs, and you'll
improve. You'll get there, and you'll eventually write a song that you're actually really proud of, and you'll do it.
We'll leave it on that with the question: what song are you most proud of?
That's a good final question. I like that one.
That's a great
good one to round off on.
I think for me, because it is one of my most recent ones, But I really enjoyed In a Whisper You Were Gone. It's one of the songs that I really pushed myself to do something that I didn't really know how to do. I used time manipulation in that song to try and make the washing line pluck sound be in the right time signature and all of that. And I really pushed myself to do stuff that I didn't know how to do when writing that song. And I was surprisingly pleased with one. It turned out being a sound that I really liked. So it kind of felt, if you were to say, oh, what's that sound? I'd go, that's very Grace in that sound. It felt very authentic. And it was also one that I'd really pushed myself on and was actually like, I can do more than I thought.
And there we are.
Where can our listeners actually listen to that?
If you want to have a cheeky listen, I've done a video about how I made it on YouTube, and the video itself is also up on YouTube.
And your YouTube channel is?
Is Grace Jukes, so you can find me.
I will also put a link in the description of this video /podcast/ wherever you can find it listening to this.
There we go.
Well, thanks for coming back into the studio, Grace.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Are you like to come back again one day?
I reckon. You could coax me in.
But what for?
Before we finish.
It's that time of the podcast.
It is the time of the podcast.
Where we look to the Sherlock Holmes hat of mystery.
I reach across the dungeon studio.
Wow, you almost did the limbo there.
I did. Dive in under the mic stands. Guess what? As our guest, you've got to dive in the hat
Again,
of
we're
mystery.
running out. We're running out of topics.
Well,
we have to top it up.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and
What
gentlemen.
is our...
So this will be a exclusive episode for our patrons and YouTube members. So the next topic of this episode will be...
Just tell us the number to start with.
It's episode 8.
Oh, that's too far back for me. I can hardly remember what I did yesterday.
8.
Any guesses? Any guesses?
8.
Moon landings.
Well done. Moon landing, yeah.
Oh,
There
now
we
that's
go.
going to be a hot topic for me.
I go
Especially considering the latest space exploration that's gone to the moon has completely...
had a couple of problems, hasn't it?
Yes, in fact, it's now burnt up in the Earth's atmosphere. So.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But for the flat earthers out there, they'll all be going, "We told you so!
It's not real.
It's not real!"
Well, let's go back to
All
episode
you
1.
naysayers. Yeah,
That's actually really interesting because when we do this part of the podcast, I always think, what's the closest to that number that I can actually remember?
Yeah.
So, for instance, with that, it was episode 7, which was Bigfoot.
Okay.
And then I went, what did I do after that? What did I do after that? Okay, that was Japanese snacks too, and we've already pulled that one out, so it must be.
There you
Moon
go.
I look forward to talking about
The
that.
logic of deduction.
An
We've got a
insight.
lot to do with moon landings
Oh, yes.
over the next 1 to 2 years. So.
It's always
How
time to
exciting.
An update
do an
on that
update
one.
on the Artemis 1 as well.
Yeah, we must come back and do a full podcast update.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a big musical goodbye from Zak.
That's a melodic goodbye from Buzz.
And it's a harmonic goodbye from Grace.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I think Grace wins on that.
Thanks.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.